Legend of Total War here, and today we're doing another Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires campaign review, this time covering Cylostra Direfin. So Cylostra's start position in Warhammer 3 is the Twisted Glade, where previously she started at Monument of the Moon, which is just slightly north of Lostria, and I think that her start position in Warhammer 3 is better and easier than it was in Warhammer 2. Now, there's a number of things that you can do here at the start of your campaign. You're starting at war with the Forgebound, but your real primary first enemy is going to be Nagaryth. Now, what you can do is just ignore these guys right from turn 1, just go straight for a Lithanar, but you don't really need to do that. There's no need to sort of activate sort of like a trick start with this, but there is something to be aware of in regard to a bugged start. You actually can't launch the attack naturally through the Black Forest because this army here is standing on top of the settlement while not being garrisoned in it. So there's actually two zones of control overlapping each other, and that prevents you from being able to attack both the army and the city. Now, there is a way to overcome this. I'll just explain briefly how to do it. I don't think that you need to do it, nor is it optimal, but if you really want to do it, this is what you do. So you bring Cylostra over to here, and click on Shipbuilding panel and recruit a new lord. Preferably a lord that has really low loyalty. If you can, get that loyalty down a little bit further by either swapping over items, which you're not going to have any at the start of the campaign unless you get one by beating this army here, or by transferring units back and forth until their loyalty hits 1, 2, 3, or 4. Then, when you boot that lord out for somebody else, there is a chance, higher chance if they're lower loyalty, but there's a chance that they'll defect. When they defect, attack that army, and when you defeat them, they should retreat within this zone of control here. Attack it again. These guys here will reinforce, beat them, and then you can attack the Black Forest, because this army here will either be wiped out or be pushed off the tile. But you don't need to do that really, because you can just take the easier option, attack this, and then occupy Hotek's column. And then on turn 2, these guys here should just occupy the settlement. But if they don't, for some strange reason, that's what you can do to get them off that. It's a bit annoying, but that's just how it is. So, in rating, reviewing Cylostra, also need to take note of her unique hero that she comes with, Robert Bartholomew, which is like an ethereal paladin unit who's got some pretty interesting skills here, specifically the Evanescence. He's able to have absolutely tons of resistances, and in the early stages of the campaign, there's not that really many like characters or units that have magical attacks, so this guy here is going to be extremely useful for you, just very hard to kill, and he's also able to replenish your casualty rate, so that's really useful in the early stage of the campaign. Then we've got Cylostra herself. While I personally find her to be a little bit annoying to listen to, she is a very powerful and fun legendary lord to play with. So, looking at her trait firstly, Siren of the Storm, which enables magical attacks for the entire army, which in Warhammer 2 wasn't always useful because magical attacks could be blocked with magic resistance, but in Warhammer 3, spell resistance doesn't block it, only ward save does. And since ward save blocks magical attacks and physical attacks, you're always better off to have magical attacks. There's no situation where having a magical weapon is a downgrade over a physical weapon, which was the case in Warhammer 2. And then you also have an extra 5% physical resistance for Lord's Army. So that improves every single one of your units regardless of what it is. So you don't have to specifically go down one just like one unit spam, although there is a specific unit that she benefits more than others. Okay, then she's got two unique lines over here. We'll firstly go through the Ghost of the Past, which is a summon ability, where at least on turn 1, it gets you one use, it doesn't require Winds of Magic, of a unit of Damned Knights Errant, which are essentially just ethereal versions of the Knights Errant from Bretonnia, so sort of like a tier 3 Knight Cavalry unit, which are pretty good. And they'll have fewer entities in that unit than what your unit scale is currently on. So for example, if you're on ultra unit scale, then these guys should summon with 45 troops in it. And then when you go to Slaughter in the Deep, that'll increase the melee stats for the Damned Knights and also give you an extra use of it, so you get 2 of it per battle. And then Watery Graves will increase the entities so that you get back up to where whatever your unit scale is, that then it'll equal whatever this spell is doing. Then you've got this upgrade over here, which transforms the Knights Errant into either Knights of the Realm or Questing Knights. Now, Questing Knights are technically a tier higher than Knights of the Realm, but I normally go with Knights of the Realm because of their ability to dish out damage quicker. See, the Questing Knights, they have more melee defense, and they don't have a specialty anti-infantry or anti-large, even though they say they're anti-infantry. The thing is, because this unit degrades over time, you want it to dish out as much damage as quickly as possible. So these guys here, they've got a much higher charge bonus. You're going to get more damage out of it, typically speaking, unless they've got significantly more armor. But overall, that's what I choose. But there's no right or wrong answer there. It just depends on what you prefer. Then you've got another unique line over here. So from the depths, increases recruit rank +1 for the Lord's Army, raise the dead cost -10. Then you've got Conjuration through Hate, hero unit capacity for Mongol hunters, and also increases their recruit rank faction-wide. Fiery Diva reduces the cooldown to overcast spells, and Winds of Magic cost when overcasting. And then Emerging Terror, minus 90% upkeep costs for Bloated Corpse units, making them almost free, but when you take into account the shipbuilding stuff, you can get them to be free. Thing is with Bloated Corpses though, you don't really keep them around as like your professional army. You keep a couple of them in your army when needed to get rid of huge blobs of infantry. So the reduced upkeep cost is not really that impactful, but it's just interesting that it's even there. Physical resistance as well for Bloated Corpses, Sirens, and Morgul hunters. The main one that benefits from those are the Sirens, because they've already got 55% physical resistance to begin with, and then adding that 10% and the trait, you can get them to 70% physical resistance, which is actually a really big improvement over 55%, because after 55%, every percentage point that you get is going to be worth more than the one that came before it. So huge amount of damage resistance for Sirens. Then you've got Siren of the Storm, which increases the Winds of Magic power reserve change plus 10% when increasing, which is not super impactful. And then you've got miscast base chance minus 15%. And in your quest item over here, you got the Borderlow Flabellum, which gives you control +2 all provinces, magic item drop chance plus 40%, vampiric corruption plus 5, miscast base chance plus 15%, and passive ability the Borderlow Flabellum, which gives you a bit of extra power recharge and decreases your cooldown every single time you cast. It's an alright item. The main benefit there is the extra control all provinces, I think. Then on top of that, you've got a Rotting Leviathan mount, which is an extremely powerful mount, but you got to take into consideration that it is so massive that it becomes a kind of a missile soak. But another sort of downside to it is that you lose a lot of your physical resistance, because this is not an ethereal unit. Now, unlike with the Rotting Promethean, I actually think this is a very good mount. Just be wary of high missile damage factions, because they'll target you a lot more than if you're on foot. So you may not always want to be on the Rotting Leviathan, but there are many cases where this is a serious upgrade there. But it's entirely up to you. Overall, I think that Cylostra's campaign is pretty good. Definitely a noob-friendly campaign, so you can play on Legendary difficulty if you want. Also on lower difficulties, this is going to be a campaign for everyone of all sort of skills, just depending on what difficulty you want to play on. I think it's a fairly interesting campaign as well, because your main objective is actually to go and invade Ulthuan and go and set up the Opera House at Lothern if you want to go do that. But the main key difference here between Warhammer 2 is that you're invading from the north, so you have to go all the way through like Avalon or go around the outer edges, whereas from the Monument of the Moon, if you'd sailed over that way, you could go straight to Lothern, so you could potentially have gotten there a lot quicker at Warhammer 2. But you've got plenty of other enemies here to keep you busy while you're getting leveled up and such. Overall, very powerful faction that's able to raise the dead. You got very powerful abilities here as well. Also looking at Mistress of the Deep, you've got loyalty +2 for new recruits, which actually makes it very difficult to do that initial trick on the Black Forests. Then you've got reduced upkeep costs for Sirens and Mongol units, and reduced recruitment costs for Sirens and Mongol units. So you've got a lot of abilities and effects here that are really gearing towards hyper-focusing on Sirens and Mongols, rather than just having sort of crap upgrades like with Aranessa's campaign, because Sirens and Mongols are units that you can use well into the late campaign, specifically Sirens. I mean, having cheap Sirens with minimum 70% physical resistance is insanely powerful. Anyway, that's the end of this one here, guys. Let me know in the comments below what you think of Cylostra, which Legendary Lord you'd like me to cover next. There are only a handful left to go before we actually finish this series. Appreciate you guys. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Later, guys.